Hey, good morning, everyone. It is February 25th. It's the end of February already, which is so crazy. And in Edmonton, we are seeing some glorious weather. And when I say that, I mean we're at plus, what are we at now? Oh no, we're at -3. But it's beautiful, blue skies, it's sunny, and we've seen warmer weather above zero the last few days. And it's just given us such a nice reprieve because we've been in the -30 for way too long. And typically, hopefully I don't jinx anything. Typically in March, we don't see such huge drops in temperature. Definitely we're going to have this like fall start to spring when it comes to the weather quite a few times before spring actually shows up. And sometimes what happens is then it also just becomes summer. It's weird. So, what about the real estate market? Do we have false starts when it comes to the Edmonton real estate market in spring market? I'm going to talk about what the real estate market is looking like right now, taking a look at some stats, showing you that it's the stats that are going to show you how I think you should price a home, how you should buy a home. And it may or may not be the right time for you if you're selling or buying. If you overpaid for your home years ago and you don't realize this, and you think to yourself, well, why is my house still not the value I think it should be? There's two different reasons potentially. One, your house might not be the price you want because it's not the price you want. Sometimes sellers just have to accept the fact that their home isn't worth as much as they think, right? A, there's actually a meme about that. Sellers always think their house is worth more. But if you think to yourself, hey, I'm looking at properties and Melody's talking about how the market is increasing, why is my house still not selling um, for what I think it should sell for? Why are those other homes being listed for way lower than I think they should be? And you need to look at the market stats. You need to look at what's sold and you need to know what's comparable. Your neighbor might be bigger, smaller, finished basement, upgrades, you have no idea. And upgrades, I'll talk about that as well. I can only do so much. So let me just first talk about the listings because I know that this is what we talk about every single week. So I want to make sure you have this. Now, last week I made a comment about how the listings seem to be changed. And here's the interesting thing. These stats are done first thing in the morning at about 8:30, 9 a.m. And they're accurate at that time. I went and double checked things, an hour later, hour and a half later, just to see if it's the same. And I realized there's slight variation because one, if a house went pending last night or an active listing went up, it's not been marked necessarily until the next day. So let's say a deal went pending last night. They have a bit of time to put it up. I believe it's about 2 days to mark pending. So they could have went pending last night and just went and put the pending status in the last hour. And so now it's taken that house off of the inventory. It could have also gone up because in the last hour, we could have had new listings being added into the system. So it's an ever changing amount. And I just want to clarify that that's why the numbers might have changed. Not by a ton though. So if you take a look here, there's currently 1,453 single family active listings in Edmonton area. So this is single family home, not condo. It's active. They are for sale. It's not changed too much from last week, so it's nothing really to note. But it has gone up since the beginning of this year. It's not continued to go down anymore, which is a good thing. It's too low. Even as a buyer, you want to go higher because you need to have more choices, but also the pace moves too quickly. But then for sellers, you actually do want a little bit more. I mean, I guess in theory, sellers want nothing, so it's chaos. But I don't know if you really want it to be that chaotic because yes, there's going to be multiple offers in a certain price point, but you literally have to like get out of your house because the house will be shown for like nonstop. We did that like 3 days in a row. Just I think one of the showings we had upwards of 80 showings in 3 days, which is insane. So if you're okay with being inconvenienced, I think sellers like that idea. But if you're a seller looking to buy, this is a little bit stressful, and we have to take a different strategy for that. So if you take a look around the other surrounding areas in Edmonton, you'll see that, again, it's not a huge change week over week. And if you've taken a look at my video for January of what's happening, you can kind of get more of a monthly scope. And then next week-ish, we'll probably be filming the February market stats to see like what's happened as a whole in February. Each week is a good kind of indicator to see and monitor, but then if you take a look at the month, you can kind of make a little bit better assessment as to what pace things are going and what direction it's going. So pending sales almost identical, and St. Albert, Sherwood Park, Spruce Grove, they're so within range. And I noticed a few houses actually went pending in the last hour once I was verifying these active listings. So Edmonton is moving. And where is it moving? It's 165 listings. So of the 165, what's actually moving? And I wanted to show you that before we go into sold. So let's take a look at the pending sales in Edmonton that are single family home. Now, this could be including also the week before. The one I just showed you was just this last week. But I want to show you so what's currently pending right now. It could include ones that just went pending yesterday. It can include last week. It can include 2 weeks ago. It could also include deals that got extensions. So they were supposed to be removed conditions last week or 2 weeks ago, but they keep getting extensions for whatever different reasons. So if we take a look, you have pending deals. We've got 340, and we had 165 that went pending this week. So let me just take a look at the calculator because I can't do that math in my head. 165, right? I say 165. Pending sales, 165 divided by 340. So 49% of the pending sales this week are in total of what's pending. So it's not just these 165, it's also the 340 total for active single family. So that's like half of what's pending went pending this last week, almost. And then if we take a look at the solds, oops, there we go. The solds will be solds. There's no like carryover solds. 166 and 185 from the week before. So you see there's 166 that sold. We have 340 pending right now. It could, in theory, all of them could remove conditions and we could have a big jump in numbers next week to 340, but likely it's going to just be halfway, just kind of like what went pending at that pace. If we start to see these sold and pendings numbers into the 2-300s, that's when the demand gets even higher. Demand is still pretty healthy right now, but 2-300 a week is insane. And we've had that. We had that last year. We've had it the year before. As we enter into spring, which is next week, I know weather-wise, we're technically feeling spring-like weather, but I think we're not technically into spring until, I don't know, you can comment. I don't know when the spring actually happens. I know that daylight savings time is coming in 2 weeks, which is insane. Also, more time for you to look at houses in the evening because it's no longer dark outside that early, and it's important to see houses in the daylight. So when you're looking for a home, you must look at a house before it gets dark. It's just not good for you to see the house in the dark. I know there's lights, but it's completely different. So take a look. This is last year at this time was 240 sales. And so we did have that already happening this time last year, and the rates were higher. Right? Everyone's like, oh, I'm just going to wait for the rates to drop. Rates are low. The rates are lower this year at this time compared to last year at this time. And we had more sales. We also had more properties, not a whole lot. We were still low inventory last year. But you can see this. What does this mean for you? Like if the sales are lower this year than they were last, and we have less listings than we did last year, the number has actually just moved down together, right? So let's pretend this is listings and this is the buying. So if listings go up and demand goes down, that is now a seller's market, right? The buyer demand is lower. They have more choices here. They can take more time. But when the demand is high, like this, and the listings are low, which is what's happened, the seller has more of the upper hand. The buyer has to hurry up and make a decision because there's nothing to buy. But what's happened now? So this is what it's been for a while. It's a seller's market. And I'm telling you, the listings, they were continuing to drop. They've gone up a little bit, but very tiny. And the buyer demand is a little bit lower than it was last year at this time. But you can see we're still here. The gap is not closing really that much because it's last year's listings was here. Now it's here. Buyers last year were here, and now we're here. So let's do last year, lower So like higher listings, a little bit, higher sales, and then you can just see it went down a little bit. So hopefully that gave you a little bit of a visual. Let's take a look at this comment that we received here. And if you're watching, feel free to ask questions and I can see if I can answer them. Do you think Edmonton property prices will reach Calgary numbers within 4 to 5 years? So I don't have a crystal ball, but I can tell you that what has happened and what we've seen in trending wise is Edmonton has always lagged behind Calgary about 3 to 4 months, and then we would always catch up. But we have not caught up for years now. It's been, I want to say, since like right during the whole boom of the pandemic. Um, and that's a huge reason why Edmonton people are starting to move to Edmonton versus Calgary because there is that spread. So last year it hit around the $200,000 difference spread, and it's still, to my knowledge, the same. The spread hasn't increased more and it hasn't decreased more. I don't believe, in my personal opinion, so take it for what it's worth, that the prices in Calgary and Edmonton will ever be the same. They just won't. They've never been. Calgary is a different demographic altogether. It's also closer to the mountains. We don't have that. Edmonton is affordable and it's always been more affordable than Calgary. We also are set up completely different. Calgary has a lot of infill properties throughout the entire city, and Edmonton hasn't really been built that way. And there's areas in Calgary that are exclusively single family properties. They don't have the same structure. Edmonton is based off each community has multifamily, they have single family, they have everything mixed together. And it creates a different type of ability for the properties to go up in value. So in Calgary, Bears Paw is extremely elite. Because guess what? There's no apartments there. It is a high-end neighborhood. It is full of like these really high-end homes. Great, expensive area, exclusive. So the value will continue to climb in those areas compared to the ones that don't have that exclusivity. And in Edmonton, we don't really see as many of those communities. So you can take a look at, let's say, Donsdale. Donsdale has no apartments. They do have some duplexes, but they're obviously higher end price homes as well too. And you've got older neighborhoods like Wolf Willow and Country Club that they do have. Do they have apartments in there? I think they have rentals in there and they have some apartments, but very, very minimal, if anything. And these are all the older neighborhoods because the older neighborhoods were set up differently than the new neighborhoods. So if you look in the new suburbs where outside of Anthony Henda, even like Rosenthal, Secord, especially, let's talk about that for a second. There's a ton of, so they always had, like Rosenthal always had the Jade, that apartment at the very front. They've had the townhouses that look like barns. They have the townhouses with no condo fees. They've had that. They were one of the first neighborhoods. And then they have the laned homes, the front attached homes, the walkout homes. There is actually an estate area, which you don't see anymore in all the new areas. There's no such thing as estate. It's ridiculous what they're calling estate lots now because the lots have gotten so small. They're calling in the old days, regular lots, estate lots, which is super weird. But in Secord, when I first moved in there was nothing. There was just single family homes. There was no apartments. They threw those in after we moved in. So that was kind of annoying because then they threw them up. The apartments came, like the high rise apartments came, or low rise came when the school was up because it's right by the school. Those are rentals, I believe. And then they have the townhouses that they threw in at the front of Secord. And then what else do they have in there? And now between Secord and Rosenthal is called Rosewood, which honestly I think on MLS is going to be considered Secord. It's mostly going to be commercial in there. So you have some rental townhouses in there, but it's a ton of rentals. So there's a few different rental apartments we've seen come up in the last few years. Those townhouses and then all the amenities. So there's now a Starbucks over there, which is kind of awesome. It's huge. There's a no frills. There's a bunch of different things there that they never used to have. And my husband and I were talking, it's probably because they know, look, all these people are here now. The apartments aren't even all finished. And the rec center is going to be right there too. So the volume of people has just really increased. And the value of the homes in terms of in generality isn't necessarily going to go down or up. People think, oh, because I'm by the rec center, the value should go up. This is what happened when was getting built. I always screw it up. It's either Rogers Arena or Rogers Place. I mess it up because Vancouver has one and then we have one. And just because you have an old apartment downtown and this new amenity comes, it doesn't mean all of a sudden it's your place is worth more. You have an old 1970s, 60s place is not going to make that desirable more now. Sure, maybe you might have a chance of more people maybe considering purchasing than you did before, but you'd have to see a huge demand for you to see like your price start to increase. So hopefully that helps. Let's see. Abolish says, I believe the Southwest area is coming up really good neighborhood like Orchards and others building new homes. As much as I love Southside, I don't see how downtown and part of North much. I don't really understand what the comment is. So Orchards, for the record, is not Southwest. That is Southeast. That is east of the White Mud. So Orchards and let me just look at my map here. It's like Orchards, Summerside, Ellerslie. That's all Southeast Edmonton. That's not Southwest. And then you have Southwest, which is between White Mud and the river, the North Saskatchewan River. That's Southwest. And yeah, Southwest has developed a lot. West has developed a lot. North has developed. Everywhere has developed a lot in Edmonton in the last 5 years. So I think that Edmonton has a lot to offer when it comes to that. I blush that Orchards is Southeast. So just because the address says Southwest, it's just how the post office. Because if you think about it, most of Edmonton is considered Northwest on mail, on Canada Post. So you can't use the Canada Post mailing address as your dictator as to what quadrant you live in the city. So nothing because in Calgary, they do southeast, northeast, northwest, south. They've done that properly because they have a middle quadrant. The middle of their city starts at 0 and then goes out. Edmonton is not like that. For the longest time, all of our addresses, 3/4 of our addresses were northwest, and then the other ones are southwest. It's super confusing. They don't have northeast, southeast at all in their thing. So it's confusing out. Yeah, it is. You can't really go off of the address. It doesn't really make sense. So Edmonton also has like the industrial areas like kind of on the side too. Different than Calgary. Calgary has a different feel. So in terms of Calgary and Edmonton, I mean, what's always going to be for certain, I think, is the rivalry between the Edmonton Oilers and the Calgary Flames and the house pricing. I really do believe that house pricing in Calgary will always be higher than Edmonton. All right, so Irina has a question. If there are cracks in the basement floor of a new house, should we be concerned? It is the house we are considering to buy. So I'm going to say a disclaimer right now in here. If you are looking to purchase a home and you're looking for advice like this, you need to be speaking to a professional realtor that's representing you. Okay, so why do you want to ask the realtor representing you? I don't want to take responsibility answering this question and then having you come back and say, Melody on YouTube said that it was okay or not okay. It's important. This is why one of the reasons you want to have a realtor work with you. We have your best interest at heart and we have to help you with this answer. And we can give you advice based on our experience and what we can bring to the table. So without answering the question, I'm going to give you two different perspectives and it's not going to give you an answer. So please ask your realtor who you are considering to, like who you're working with, to help you answer this question, okay? And you can't just call a realtor and say, hey, can you do this for me as a one-off? Because there's a reason why people hire realtors to help them through the whole process, not just this one little section, but the whole process. So I'm going to say, you can say, yes, it should be concerned, or no, I'm going to give you both sides, okay? So if there's cracks in the basement floor, one argument that would be on the no side, no concern, is that there's always cracks in the basement. Now, what kind of crack is it? Can you fit a quarter in it? Can you fit your finger in it? Is it a tiny hairline crack? Like there's so many things that have to be considered. When was this house built? Was it laid foundation in the summer, the winter? And also think about this, when you buy a house for resale and the basement's finished, you have no idea what the floor looks like underneath. There could be a zillion cracks and you wouldn't even know. So should you be concerned? That was argument for no. Or wait, No, yeah, no. The argument for yes, you should be concerned is, yeah, maybe you should be concerned. Maybe you should be concerned about the quality of construction, depending on, again, what kind of cracks these are. Are these controlled crack lines? Are you worried about water? Do you see water and efflorescence in the rest of the basement? Is there cracks everywhere else? Is there also a crack on the wall? Those are even more concerning. So I'm not wanting to give you an answer because I don't know what your specific house is. And I think you need to be really careful to take advice from people who are not agents, people who are not working for you specifically. Googling on YouTube, Googling on ChatGPT is not going to give you the answer that you have to make, as you're putting probably $500,000 on this house. So make sure to get proper representation. Make sure to hire the right professionals, not just an agent, but also potentially a home inspector. We can walk you through that whole process. And so you're this far down the line, you might want to have a conversation. Like a home inspector won't even be able to answer that phone on that comment on the phone. People need to see this in person for themselves, because your version of a large crack or a small crack or a hairline crack could be different than someone else's. Eyes need to be on the property. So I think it's really important to make sure you do all the research. So hopefully that helps. I know it was not a yes or no answer, but I cannot give that kind of information and advice on YouTube, as I'm here just to kind of help you guys out, learn about the real estate market. And it's not a advice thing. You can ask me anything. I just don't know if I can give you the answer. And I'm not going to give you, and I don't want to give you advice that's going to lead you down the wrong path. And that's super concerning to me, that you can't, just don't take my advice. You need to take the advice of whoever it is that you're working with. Because I don't know what their thing is. So yeah. Anyways, good luck with your purchase. And we have been on for a whole 20 minutes. So if you have questions about communities, we're working on a project right now to research different communities. We're sticking with West and Southwest Edmonton. So as the weather starts to warm up, we're going to start going out and doing some more filming and whatnot. So if you have any communities you're interested in, for all of my out-of-town buyers that are watching, please let me know in the comments what communities you're looking for. What are you looking for in a community? I'll tell you what people typically will tell me what they're looking for in a community. They're looking for the right house or the right school. Those are the two big things. Sometimes people want to be in the area because of the community, but the type of house they want they don't exist. So I wanted to, location is everything. And so if you're looking at location, we want to showcase you what is actually here, what can you purchase in that area, and if your budget doesn't work there, what can we find in your budget range that kind of still gives you the things that you want. And a little tip that I would give to most people, well, to everyone, if you're looking for communities and you don't know if it's a good community or not, it's a community you want to live in, go check out the local grocery store. It's going to give you insight as to the feel of the area and the people. You can't use only that to prejudge, but it does give you a better sense of the everyday versus just looking at homes on their own. So I hope you have a great, fabulous day. Enjoy that weather if you guys are living in Edmonton, and we'll talk to you guys next week.